this is one of several things. We've conducted international festivals of young people. We've conducted events and forums. We've done stuff virtually and offline, and really that's where movements start. So I'm really pleased to be able to share this day with all of you. And I wanted to share a quick snapshot. We're in close to 30 countries already now over the span of the last 4 years. We have over 300 partners, which span, like I said, from schools to universities to businesses to governments, state and national, and so on and so forth. Many of our partners are in Latin America as well, though we work on every continent. And so far, we've gotten to about, our reach has gotten to about, 1.1 million and counting, as it says here. I also want to say these are just a few glimpses of the amazing young people that are trailblazing action on issues of climate change and action to protect our planet. So I'm delighted to welcome all of you. I hope this is the start of something much larger. I'm sure it is. And what I want to say is that we call ourselves a family. So what I want to say is a big welcome to the POP family. We're delighted to have you here. And I know this is the start of our future. And with that, I'm going to say, please take a minute to take a picture of this or a screenshot or whatever you like. We encourage you to please sign up. We want to be able to take forward all that we need to do. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in this world. So here we are, a big welcome. Use those hashtags, please. We have the power of social media in our pockets. And you've got our social media handles. Your Excellency, we are absolutely deeply honored, humbled, and inspired by your leadership. Thank you so much for standing strong and showing us the light at every step of the way. And a big welcome to everybody, our family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ash. We really appreciate all this information you brought forward to us. And with having that said, I would like to go ahead and now make the transition to Anvi, who is going to talk to us a little bit about how our agenda today is going to be structured in our program. So Anvi, over to you.
Thanks, Lena. As you all must know, our topic of discussion for today's e-conference is the role of education in improving the environment. If you're just like me, I know you're very excited to get started. So let me give you a quick overview of what to expect today. We start with the keynote speech by our special guest, Her Excellency Miss Rosalia Arteaga, followed by a short, fun individual exercise, and finally, the core of our conference, the group discussions.
That's right, Anvi. Thanks for that overview. And as once stated, education is the key to a better society, a better country, and a better world. And who better to give us that insight into this topic than, as we've mentioned, our keynote speaker for today, who is none other than Her Excellency, Miss Rosalia Arteaga, first woman to have held the positions of Constitutional President and Vice President of the Republic of Ecuador. As former Secretary General of the Amazon Corporation Treaty Organizer, she was also Deputy Minister of Culture and Minister of Education. Lawyer, Doctor of Jurisprudence, she has a degree in journalism and MA in anthropology, is member of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, serves as a member of the board of the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, among many other honors and awards. Now, she is CEO of the Fundación Fidel, which stands for Foundation for the Integration and Development of Latin America. Her Excellency is a very active woman that gives conferences, impulses education, and preservation of our environment. Therefore, to begin this auspicious occasion at the Youth Symposium, I do want to welcome Her Excellency, Ms. Rosalia Arteaga. Over to you, ma'am. Welcome y bienvenida. I do want to kindly remind you that I will be providing you with a 1-minute warning. You will hear a very gentle chime sound when you are approaching the 5-minute segment of your time before we proceed to the next part of the program.
To have the opportunity to talk to you in this special day, the Day of the Earth. As Ash mentioned, I want to thank Ash Pachauri and also Lina for the presentation. And to explain only in 1 minute why I am here, I had the opportunity to meet Rajendra Pachauri, such an amazing person. He was well known all around the world, and I shared with him an event in Baku in Azerbaijan where we talk about environmental issues, and he moved me to be part of the event in Durango, Mexico, early this year. And where, unfortunately, Rahendra is not here, but his spirit is with us. I'm absolutely sure about that, and very well represented by his son, loved son, Ash. Thank you very much to let me be here and talk with you. I want to start telling you that I used to be a teacher since I was 17 years old. Maybe some of you are 17 years old or maybe a little older, but I started at that time, and I feel that my complete life has to be dedicated to education, because education is the power that moves humanity, that can change the paradigms, that can change lives. If you don't have good quality of education, if you don't have the opportunity to learn from others, to establish networks, to learn from the nature, to learn traveling, to learn reading, you cannot go forward. It is a really nice coincidence that today is the day of the earth, but tomorrow is the day of the book. Imagine that, such a nice coincidence, because I am in this introduction trying to put together education, environment, and of course, young leadership. With these three anchors, I think we can move and try to stimulate actions, because we need actions to save the planet. You know exactly what's happening now. Every one of us, probably myself, we are in a kind of quarantine in my home. Usually at this time, I had to be in my office or traveling, but now it's the 5th week that I'm staying at home. In Ecuador, the quarantine is totally for all the people, and we cannot move from our homes just only to have some food or medicines or things like that, but very few minutes. But it demonstrates to you how fragile can be the earth, can be human beings. In some moment, things could change. And when we are talking about environment, we had been, like human beings, making a lot of change in our planet, destroying the environment, destroying landscapes, destroying the provision of safe water, land or soil to cultivate, and how we can reverse this situation is what I think is the core of pop movement, because we have to protect our planet now. And how we can do that, it is through education. We have to learn what happens. We have to learn what's happening in different places of the world, because it is an evidence that anything that we do in a place, it can affect in the rest of the planet. I put an example because I used to work for some years in an organization that has to take care of the Amazon jungle. You know that the Amazon is the biggest biodiversity place in the world, with more than 7 million square kilometers, 7.5 million square kilometers, with the basin that is the biggest basin in the world, 6 million and 5.5 square kilometers also. And this Amazon has a lot of risks and problems. Then when I was working with the Amazon jungle and has to go all around the 8 countries, one of the countries that Lina mentions, Colombia, of course, and Ecuador, and Brazil, and Guyana, and Suriname, and Venezuela, and Bolivia, plus French Guyana, I said that anything that we did or can do in any place of the Amazon, it affects the complete planet, the whole planet. How it can happen? It's because the links that they are in between the different continents, the different seas, the different environments. If we, for example, contaminate with mercury the water of a small river on the Andeans and Andean regions, and that's the reason that we talk a lot about the Andes Amazonic region, because we have a very strong link between the Andes mountain and the Amazon basin, then we talk a lot about how it affects, for example, if we deposit mercury in a small river, it goes through the water to the Amazon River, and the Amazon River go with their waters to the Atlantic Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean go to the coast of United States, of Europe. Then the interrelation is really, really very strong. Then the responsibilities are also very strong. How we can work being young people. I had a lot of hope in youngsters, in people that are convinced, because we in the past probably we have to learn a lot about even the word environment doesn't exist at that moment. Ecology doesn't exist that when I was a student. Words that we didn't talk or we didn't think about. Ecology, for example, was created in '92 in Rio meeting. But when now we are talking, even with the small kids, they are concerned about what's happening. They talk about contamination. Contamination, we didn't talk about contamination in the past. And talk about the big responsibility, how to preserve the planet for the new generations, with the generations that are coming in the future. And that is, I think, in the DNA of you, of young people. You have incorporated the chip of concern about what's happening with the environment. And that's a big issue, and that's a big responsibility, because new generation have in the hands the possibility to change patterns, to change models, to think about how it can work to build a more a continent, a world that is more friendly with everybody, with more justice, with better distribution of resources, not affecting the environment is one of these big issues. And it has to be built through education, it's the only way. When people ask me about solutions for anything, even the coronavirus, the COVID-19 that we are suffering now, if we are thinking about how to prevent sickness, how to do that on the other, we have to start by education. Education says that we have to wash very well our hands, for example, now. And this is education that comes from the parents and comes from the teachers and comes from the journalists and comes from TV shows and internet possibilities. I think it is really the big space where we can move. It was an interesting sociologist in Canada that started to talk about the a town that is a global town, because in the past we think only about our surrounder, what we have in the immediately connection with us, our home, the town where we live, or the big city where we live, it doesn't matter. But now we have to think global and act local. That's the reason that many times I talk about a word that is creation, because the language is alive. It is not stop it that it says we know all the words. Now we can create words. You can create words. And some people around the world think that a good word to define how we can act now is glocal, the combination between global and local. It is a new word because it's a new reality. Sometimes when I speak with students and other people, I said, well, when they were not astronauts, for example, in the world, when they were not the idea to go to the space or to the moon, it was not a need to create the word astronaut. Why we have to create a word that we are not going to use? Not. But now that we have this new world, we need to create words to describe how to approach to these elements, how to approach to the reality. And I think global is a good approach. Why is a good approach? Because of course we live in a global world. This sickness, this pandemic demonstrate to us that there are not borders, no borders. You want to maintain it surrounded by a safety guard. Not possible. The virus go around, go by planes, go by people that's moving from one place to others. That's globalization. If you think in economy, if something happens in China or India, for example, stop to buy some commodities, the world is trembling like now. What happens with science? We are talking using a tool that is an invention, that is a creation of someone, of some group of people to develop the Zoom tool, the Zoom possibility to talk from different parts of the world. And it is fantastic. This is part of globalization. But also we want to preserve the local. How local has to be also preserved. It's our identity. And that's the issue that I talk about, local like a tool to understand the world. I have to finish my speech for now. I have to move to other room to talk with Latin American boys and girls, but I had been very happy to talk with you and to put some seeds, probably the seeds of the global, the seed of education like a big tool, the concerns that we have, the responsibility, and the imagination that we have to put to create a new world. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a very good conversation and work.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for those wonderful words, and really you have inspired everyone and all of us. So having that said, for everyone that has just joined, we are asking that you please turn on your videos as we are about to enter our other part of the agenda. And Your Excellency, Ms. Rosalia Arteaga, like I said, thank you for being with us and for sharing all that knowledge and to really share a little bit about yourself and, you know, things that many of us had not known about you. So we do appreciate that. And believe it or not, and really, you know, listen, I want you to think about this part. What really makes this conference unique is the fact that the ideas that you're going to talk about today are not just going to be heard, they're going to be implemented. We understand that the power of your thoughts and the fact that you're here is the fact to channelize, and the fact that the potential that you're going to be talking with people from so many other countries. I think we have over 40 countries, and you have about over 40 or 50 or 60 people that are here, and we're going to use those ideas to bring change in an action plan. Because when we arrive later in this e-conference, you're each going to be divided into smaller groups to discuss and formulate those action plans. So now you're probably wondering, okay, well, what's the purpose of these action plans, right? So there's two things. One of them is that you're going to prepare a summary report and policy brief for this conference that is going to be circulated worldwide. And the second thing is that these action plans that you are going to create is going to be through a group activity that will be formally sent to governments in order to institutionalize your suggestions and make a change. So, having that said, I'm ready to go ahead and move into the second segment of our agenda, the fun individual exercise. And to lead us into this, I want to go ahead and introduce your TS moderator, Sahani. So Sahani, again, I will go ahead and provide you with a 1-minute warning, which is going to be the chime that you're going to hear. And that's going to let you know that you are approaching the end of your 10-minute segment. Okay? So now over to you, Sahani.
Thanks, Lena. This is just a quick brain teaser to get your thoughts flowing. So grab a pen and paper and let's get started. Imagine this. You're in a situation where you have just 90 seconds to convince the United Nations that it is important to include environmental education in schools. What would you say? You have 3 minutes to brainstorm. Once you're done, use the raise your hand feature on your Zoom, and the instructions to do so will be on the chat box. 2 of you will be randomly chosen to present your thoughts in 90 seconds. So now your 3 minutes is going to start. Everyone ready? Your time starts now. Okay, guys, your time is up now. Please raise your hand if you want to speak. Okay, perfect. Now our first speaker will be Sasha. You can start by introducing where you're from, and I will give you a 1-minute warning when you're approaching the end of your time, okay? So, Sasha, please, could you start speaking?
All right. Hello, I'm Sasha, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta. That's in Canada. So, as a student, I often feel powerless compared to all the events going on around me. And I live in Alberta, which its main industry is oil production, and that has totally catastrophic impacts on the environment that are often overlooked. And the truth is, these decisions are being made by older generations, which are not going to be around to see the environmental impact that they have. And it's like passing on their problems to the next generation, which is us. And it's even worse if we're not allowed to even have proper solutions available to us that we can use to fix all these problems. In schools around Alberta, environmental education is very polarized and politicized because it's considered, giving ideas to the next generation about politics, which teachers are not supposed to do. But in my opinion, that's terrible because we don't have any way of coping into the world that we will come in. That's going to be just totally ruined already by all the decisions made by different companies for profit. And so I think education is extremely important to actually combat this, because education, and especially environmental education, will not only help youth stand up and rise for the decisions that they want to be made about their future, but it'll also teach them ways to live a more environmentally friendly life and ensure that they actually have a future.
Thank you so much, Sasha. That was great. Now we're going to move on to our next participant. Rishita Kapoor, would you like to start by introducing where you're from? And again, I will give you a warning once you're done with 1 minute of your time.
Yes, and hello everybody. I am from India, and my name is Rishita. I live in Delhi, New Delhi, and my point, what I want to talk about over here is, and over here, country borders don't mean anything now. It's the whole earth. We have to cooperate, and we are one world, and health and environment are very critical at this point, because the UN has the power to not just hold large conferences, but to implement them as policies and actions. And because the children also look up to the UN, and life depends on the environment, because where we are, the environment has to really be taken care of. And the environment's not there, we are not there. And of course, the Australian fire, the iceberg melting, proves that even half a degree change in the global temperature makes a really big difference. Yes, and that was what I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rishita.
Well, thank you, Sahani. I appreciate that. And even more fantastic, thank you for keeping everything under wraps and under time. And likewise, thank you for raising your hand and participating, Sasha and Rishita. And I also saw that there were a few other people that were raising their hands, and you will get your chance to participate and speak. This was just a quick, fun brain teaser to get everybody sort of started, get you thinking, get you prepared for this next part of the exercise. And, you know, it was really cool and incredible to witness what you can do in 90 seconds, and more so what you get to do when you are presented with an opportunity like this, and when you think about the power of advocacy. So having that said, I am very curious what you guys are going to be able to accomplish in this next, in this third part, which is the group discussions. And for this, I do want to welcome your other TYS moderator, Dhruv Pindra, and his incredible team that is coming with you, which are all of our TYS facilitators. If before we continue, can we go ahead and look to go ahead and mute the, okay, lovely. So Dhruv, for this, the same rules apply. You will hear the time when you're approaching your time limits for the segments that you have. Facilitators, I ask you that when you do go ahead and break out into your rooms, you either assign someone or you keep your own time for the parts of your exercise, because as you know, you will have certain things that you need to complete in this time. And now all of you participants that are with us here today, listen up. Efficiency is of essence, okay? Because you will be discussing, you will be formulating the action plan. And at the same time, you will be with your facilitators, which you will be at the end of it. Presentations will be part of this exercise. So having that said, I would like to go ahead and hand over to you, Dhruv.
Perfect. Thank you, Nina. Okay, now we'll be moving on into the most awaited segment of our e-conference, the group exercise. All of you are going to be divided into smaller meetings called breakout rooms. Here you will discuss in detail one important segment of society that has a role to play when it comes to environmental education. The list is in front of you. It could be the government or perhaps teachers and businesses. Now, the idea is for all of you to discuss with your group members for 15 minutes how these stakeholders can help in the promotion of environmental education and come up with an action plan. Now, I know that sounds fancy, but it's essentially just a document that lays out what steps should be taken to achieve a specific goal. Each breakout room will be moderated by a TYS facilitator who is there to help guide the discussion. Once your 15 minutes are up, each group will have 2 minutes to present upon joining us back into the main room, which will be done by the TYS representative. So don't worry or be nervous. This is your chance to make a difference. You will soon see an option pop up on your screen that says you are invited to a breakout room. Please press join and you will automatically be directed to this room. Best of luck, guys, and make sure you use these 15 minutes wisely.
Hi guys, just let everybody join and then we'll get started. Just give me, yeah. All right, just wait for 30 more seconds. Let's see if anybody else joins. Otherwise, we'll start. Cool? Why don't we just start by you guys introducing yourselves, your name and which country you're from? So we can start with Aniket.
Hi, my name is Aniket. I come from India, however, I was born in Slovenia. I'm doing the IB. I'm in my first year of the IB, and that's it.
That's great.
Anything else?
Yeah. So what do you like doing? Anything specifically that you...
I play badminton professionally, and I debate as well. So I do MUN, and I also do World Schools Debating Championship.
All right. Wow, it's pretty cool. Let's move on to, how do I pronounce your name? I'm sorry, could you just help me with that? Sayasha. Okay. Hi, Sayasha. Could you just tell us something about yourself? Then we move on to Saruvesh, and then we'll just get started.
Hi, my name is Sayasha, and I'm from Malaysia. And I'm 16 years old, still schooling from fall. And the things I like to do is I'm very passionate about innovation and invention. So I do join a lot of these competitions and get involved. That's how I got to know about this event as well. And I also do sports. And besides that, I am also into public speaking as well.
That's amazing. Sorry, which country are you from?
Malaysia.
Okay, lovely. Suresh, could you just introduce yourself and just tell us something about yourself, then we'll get started with the discussion.
All right, I'm Sarvesh Morgan from Malaysia, from particularly Sarawak, East Malaysia. And I'm 21 right now, and I'm a second year medical student. So I'm interested in public speaking, and also I've actively joined in some innovative competitions like Google Innovative Scholars. And yeah, most of my innovations are basically towards regarding environmental sustainability, something like that. Yeah.
So I can see we have a lot of smart people in our room today. So that's great. So it'll be a productive discussion. You know, smaller group, it's a lot better because then we can actually have a good holistic discussion. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the conference up until now. My name is Advik. As you can see, I'm 16 years old. I'm in the Shriram School, Mall Street. It's a private school in New Delhi, India. I've been passionate about the environment because of my school, because of my family, because everyone around me is so into sustainability, protecting the environment, preserving it. So it's been a large part of my life ever since I can remember. Since you've already introduced yourself, I'll just let you know our topic of discussion for today. So our topic of discussion in this particular group is how can private and public schools integrate environmental education into their curriculum? How can private and public schools integrate environmental education into their curriculum, as well as how can schools promote the idea of environmental education in a holistic manner? Our aim is to come up with a plan of action which has the potential to be implemented globally. So you all know we'll be presenting and creating a policy brief at the end of this discussion. So we need holistic points that can be implemented on a large scale. Now, if you guys have any ideas, of course, which I know you all will do, please feel free to raise your hand and speak. Since you already introduced yourselves, let's start. Let's start discussing. You can take 30 seconds or a minute to just absorb the question, absorb the plan of action, the agenda for today, and then we'll get started. And we have around 12 minutes right now because we've been talking for about 3 or 4 minutes. But that's all right. Even if we run out of time, don't worry. Your action plans will still be used to create a policy brief, which will be distributed globally. So yeah, just take 30 seconds or a minute, and just when you're ready, raise your hand and we'll get started. Cool. And since it's only the 4 of us here, I think that there'll be a lot of participation from your end. So I really hope that you'll raise your hand and everyone will participate in a productive discussion. Also, after we discuss a particular point, and if we are all in agreement with that particular point, you just go ahead and put it in the chat box so I can copy it, and then afterwards we'll create a plan of action. Is that cool? All right. So we can start now. Who'd like to go first? Aniket, Saruvesh. I'm just here to moderate. It's your discussion. So you guys can talk.
Yeah, sure. So my way of thinking how the education system should work in having education that implements environmental sustainability is they should have not just about not about case studies about just for learning or listening, but it should involve something that integrates with their real life, which means local cases which can integrate with their real life. What I mean by local is not a country-based local, but more localized into the area where the people are living. And what are the current issues, not just an issue that based on scientific founding and issues based on historical founding. Another thing, it's not regarding the element of learning the environmental sustainability point over here, but the way of teaching should be in a two-way. Like in me medical school, we have the system called PBL system. It's a team-based system where it's not just by listening and understanding, but also to voice out what's going around you. It's like where the educator also learns and where the educator gives opinion for the student. Once a student knows the current problem around them, they will have the strive for find the cure or to solve the problem. I'm not talking about fear over here. I'm not creating fear inside the student, but a concern. That's our main purpose over here. So I think so. That's all from me.
Yeah. So constant awareness about local issues, localized issues specifically, right? That's what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Does anyone have anything else? Perfect. That's perfect. Does anyone have anything else to add on to that? We could put that in the chat box then, Saruvesh, because then we can utilize that for our plan of action. Aniket, Sayasha, anybody, you guys can.
Yeah. So I come from like a school where I did like problems with climate change are actually taught. And the way that generally works, and it's quite, I think it's done quite well at our school, is firstly they talk about the problems of climate change, like what causes it, how did it manifest in the first place, and then solutions to it, but not only just listing out solutions, but the problems with the solutions as well, which not only leads to understanding more of like how to fix it, but also why to fix it and what is the necessity of fixing it in the first place. As was said prior, also case studies is very important to understand like what exactly specific issues that need to be fixed rather than just a general void of information. As well as that, like in our school, we write a lot of essays, we have a lot of real life applications. we also apply it to, we also in our school have meetings for creating infrastructure that's more sustainable and green. So allowing a platform for such things that actually can manifest policy changes within school is also something that happens, at least at our school, and it works quite well. Yeah.
I'm sorry, is your school from K to 12? Is it just a high school? So how is the breakup of that? Is it like 6 to 12, 9 to 12? Is it
it's like 8 till 12.
All right.
So yeah, so 4 years of school.
Yeah. Perfect. So what you both have spoken about is, of course, very relevant, and I think these are great starting points. So we'll put that in our plan of action, definitely. I'd like to hear from Sayasha, and meanwhile, if all of you could consider for a moment that while all of these examples are extremely relevant in terms of implementing environmental education at the senior level, in senior classes, right? Talking about junior classes, because education spans from the junior classes all the way up to high school and even further. So talking about that, environmental education, integrating it into the curriculum, we need to sort of put our eyes towards junior classes and how they can be introduced to the idea of sustainability and environmental education and how it can benefit them. That's just a thought. What you guys have put forth so far is brilliant. And yeah, I'd like to hear from Saisha now. If there's anything.
Hi. I'm not exactly adding on to
Sorry,
that,
I
but I'm
can't.
bringing up a new point. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Not a problem at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. It was
Yeah,
freezing
I'm
a little
adding
bit,
on.
but that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm like adding
Yeah,
on a new point
continue.
because you mentioned that since primary school, I mean like younger things like that, right? I personally, we do learn a lot of things. It's in our syllabus, in our textbooks and things like that. But for me, it doesn't really matter much because I'm not impacted by it, or just by studying it, it doesn't really matter. So I think we should actually have more hands-on activities. So firstly, is by including it in extracurricular activities, like into clubs and our clubs in schools. Because we do have all these initiatives like Interact Club and things like that, but we don't exactly have a nature and wildlife club or something like that. So I think that's a very important point that should be started and implemented from a younger age, because primary school students would be even more excited to actually join hands-on activities, to go out on field trips, to actually learn these things even more, instead of reading it and just looking it up on textbooks and things like that. And that would be a very good start to bring it out into not only in school but outside as well. So for youths especially, if we started in our higher school, it would be a very good start for us to actually widen the scope and not only create a club among the school members but also in a wider group. And another point is that each school must have and implement green and environmental initiatives in their school, and this is like a must. For an example, recycling, plant plants, mini garden, zoo, and etc. So these are
So an
points.
environmental club is essentially an initiative that focuses on specific issues, right? Is that what you're saying, right? Environmental initiatives such as recycling and stuff like that, so that every school has that emphasis on sustainability. See, all of these are brilliant ideas. I just like you to put it in the chat box as and when you go along, so we can at the end culminate that into one plan of action. Is that cool? Right. So I love what she's saying. I love what all of you are saying. If any of you want to add on to that, that's perfect. If you want to move on to another point, but I like the idea of like primary education, focusing on nature, inculcating a love and passion for the environment in the first place, and then talking about issues, talking about relevant local examples. That's also very interesting and very, very important in today's world, because of course, unless it directly impacts you, the reality is you're not as likely to care, right? And unless you instill that from the youth level itself, from the foundation years, environment will not be as important to you as it might be perhaps if you were introduced to it at age 6 or age 7. So the primary aspect of it I love. And so Ravesh, if you have anything to say, because you spoke first, so if you have anything to add on to this, or if anybody else has anything to add on to this.
Yeah, I think so. I have one point, important point, just I missed out. So although there's a lot of main agenda or mottos of our global education system, but the primary one is to create a product for job market over there. So although we are talking about education system that involves primary, lower secondary, junior, high school, university, everything ends up in the job market at the end of the day. So I think so the thing that pushes the education system, the job market over there. So we need something that stresses the importance of education stresses the importance of environmental sustainability in job market, so that the education system somehow forced to implement the thing. It's not just a thing just to be looked upon, but to be respect upon. It will be. And I would like to support what Sai Yasha's point just now over there. Yeah, it's important to implement elective or extracurricular activities in primary school to let those students to understand. So this is not just mainly focusing on to create a subject, a particular subject. I'm not telling about creating a particular subject that focus on environmental sustainability, but relating all the subjects, history, science, maths, even your linguistic subjects with environmental sustainability. So it's not just about something you're learning, something new, but it's about real life integration, what I mentioned earlier in my point. So yeah, that's all from me.
I think that's actually very, very relevant. And I really agree with you on that regard. Integrating real life examples and every aspect into the environment, like with regard to the environment, integrating linguistics, math, English, all these subjects that seemingly may not have a connection to the environment. But in reality, everything at the end of the day has an environmental factor to it. And it's important to help students understand that. I had an idea because at our particular school, in the Sriram school, we have something known as like the Environmental Awareness Week, or like a week in schools where we just focus specifically on the environment. So over and above the environmental education classes, specifically localized awareness plans, say 1 week dedicated to just talking about environmental issues, not in like not just drumming it into students' heads, but fun activities for the junior level, something more concrete for the middle school level, something more concrete for the high school level. So Sarvesh, you could just put that down in the chat box, what you just said, because I really love what you just said with regard to integrating subjects with the environment. And Sayasha, you also put that down. Aniket, what you said initially, you can also put that down. Any idea that you feel deserves to be in the plan of action, you can just put down in the chat box at the end of the discussion. We'll talk about that. Now, coming back to the Environmental Awareness Week as such, do you guys think that's a good idea? Do you think that would help? Just give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, about that, right? I did think about that, but again, instead of making it like a 1 week thing, I think it's better if it is a continuous implementation. Meaning, it's not just once in a year we do it, but every month, so that we can constantly monitor and constantly instill that into the minds of people.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Sarvesh, Aniket, anything to say? Any other points, Aisha, you had regarding this particular issue? No, but I do agree with you that a continuous thing, obviously, if we just have a week for the environment and we neglect the year round, then obviously the impact will not be made. We all understand that aspect of it. But so far, what we've discussed, localized awareness plans, integrating real life examples, teaching primary level on with extracurriculars, activities, all of that is great. Now, there's one particular issue when we talk about public and private schools. So I'm assuming you are guys all from private schools, private education, right? Or public schools? Public schools, private schools? Public schools, so government funded schools.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And do you think, of course, we have a relative degree of privilege in the sense that we can come here together and discuss issues and all of that. But in certain parts of the world, there are schools which don't have that access, which don't have that availability. They are constrained by factors such as cost, by factors such as affordability. That's why when we're focusing on public and private schools, we're trying to integrate all schools. So at like a holistic level for every school, are there certain ideas that you think that can be implemented even in the least fortunate of places or in areas where not everyone has the access that we do? Anything, just touch upon that. After you're done writing whatever point you mentioned in the chat box, I'll give you 30 seconds. Meanwhile, I'll just note some stuff down because everything which you said is very relevant, and I think we're doing a good job so far.
Yeah, but I have something to add on with your point regarding okay, like based on Malaysia, based on my education system. So talking about private and government school and bringing up together the education, voice of education that focus on environmental sustainability. But the question here is, is there a proper and easy way to implement the syllabus or modules that we are hoping for in government education system, which can actually correlates with private education system? That's a major thing. We can actually correlate it, make it as a one streamline in term of in universities, pre-universities level. But how about we are talking about whole scenario over here, which involves primary school, junior secondary. So yeah, we need a streamline. This involves political issues, sociopolitics and economics. So yeah, the question over here, government, we need access from the government to implement the syllabus, which comes in the same streamline for the private and government education. So we'll be doing in the same phase, not in a different level of phases and different kind of objective. So we'll be in the same direction.
All right, yeah, that's great. Any of you want to add on to what Sarvansh said, Vivesh said? Well, I certainly agree with that point. So personally, in India, I can give you an Indian example, in Delhi especially, government schools and publicly funded schools are improving, but in terms of education, the vast majority of people in our country, the vast majority of parents do choose to send their children to private school for reasons such as, just educational reasons, the quality of education and all of that. Environmental education for a lot of publicly funded and government schools may not be of that much of importance because of obviously other issues that they face in India specifically. I can't talk from another perspective, but I can talk from my perspective. Adding on to what Sarvesh said, I think when we're discussing something like this, it's important to sort of try and understand those barriers that they face and try and find some common ground where environmental education can be implemented at the school level in every kind of school. However, also bearing in mind and remaining sensitive to the fact that not every school will have the resources, or obviously will have other aspects to consider before talking about environmental education. Because at some schools, they don't even have English teachers or math teachers. It's a real struggle because there's one teacher for every 100 students. So at that kind of level, how is it possible to integrate environmental education in the pointers that you all have listed? I understand that is quite a tough thing to consider and talk about in just 5 to 10 minutes, but it's just something to ponder upon. Yeah, Aniket? Yeah, go ahead.
Like, apart from the school curriculum, which is important, I also think that schools could introduce like low-cost infrastructure that would help. Like, by infrastructure, I mean like different types of trash cans in order to recycle your products properly, and therefore
all right,
like, things like that. I mean, not necessarily only in the curriculum, but also on like the physical level. That is something that I think that is very important, because that obviously reinforces the idea of how important protecting and nurturing the environment is. If it's present around you, obviously eventually the idea will get drummed in your head. The idea is to integrate it into the curriculum, and I think that is a great way of doing so. So obviously having, say, recycling booths, having like stuff like that will definitely help. I have a couple of more things. I mean, if you guys have all put down a lot of stuff into the chat box, I'm just going to take a rain check on the time. Just give me a second. Because... All right, 1 second. You guys can just, it's a discussion. You have anything to say, just feel free to go ahead and say it. I see you guys, I think I'm pretty lucky. I think we're all pretty lucky that we have a relatively productive group, because I'm looking at certain other groups and certain other discussions that are happening around. And I think our group, our meeting room is fairly productive. So that's good. I think that it's important to utilize such opportunities. I like what Sarvesh said. Yeah, this is what we have discussed, implementing the requirement for well-work. Yeah, perfect. Do you guys have any other specific ideas with regard? Remember, it's about implementing and integrating it. So it should feel like a seamless sort of integration. Environmental education, at least in my school, up until 6th grade, we had a weekly slot for environmental education. But let me tell you, at a personal level, none of us enjoyed those classes simply because it was less about activities like what Sayasha recommended and all that. It was more about just drumming the same ideas into our heads, which we've been hearing since a very young age. So we were already aware of the environment.
we did care about the environment, but those particular classes didn't seem to really have an impact on us as such. Are there any things that you think that we can do differently, supposing schools do have weekly slots for, say, environmental assemblies or environmental classes that can keep students engaged and genuinely passionate about the environment? Not just because the school is forcing them to be there, but because they genuinely care. Because I can see that all of you seem to be particularly, caring about the environment. So something that would sort of encourage and engage students. Yeah, Aniket, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the reason, for example, I care about the environment is because I've learned not only a lot about it in school, actually not because I've learned a lot about it in school, but because of more and more MUNs and more debate activities that have a lot of motions and topics that have
a lot of extracurriculars.
Yeah, so I mean, it's again repeating ourselves, but like I think that would help.
So extracurriculars that have an extra emphasis on environmental issues. That is something that, yeah, we've all discussed about that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. You did put it in the chat box, right? Did you put this particular?
It's already there.
Yeah, perfect. We've got quite a bit. Okay, wow. So we have around a minute left to discuss. I think that just wrapping up any thoughts, because I'll take all of your suggestions and I'll compile it and then I will present it in 2 minutes. Sarvesh is saying something. Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. I was just giving an example about how sometimes that kind of a teaching process doesn't work out. So we have a minute. You guys can just go ahead and discuss anything that you want.
I think that extracurricular is like a really good approach, because even in the rural areas or any areas, anyone can do it. And as a student, I have even created my own club straight away directly by approaching my principal. And this doesn't matter where we are, which area it is, anyone can do it. And I think that is a very good start, because it can also indirectly implement the idea of education in the students. That's all.
I do, yeah, that is tackling the problem of,
very essential. So the first reason is that they fit the role of being a mentor perfectly. So adolescence is like a period of confusion, and teachers are perfect to be their guiding light. So what we came up with was that we were going to turn the EE, which is the environmental education, from theory into practice, because we believe that students getting more engaged with their teachers and actually experiencing it will have a much larger impact on their learning and on their knowledge. So how we plan to go about this was basically by using social media forums, for example, Zoom like this. So as the previous facilitator mentioned, that instead of holding talks for students, we were going to have one for teachers as well. We decided to use Zoom because we could easily access teachers from everywhere. So not only nationally, but internationally as well. Therefore, the exchange of ideas would be far more widespread and would have a greater impact, because teachers could exchange ideas from how they're teaching the EE in one particular country, and which could be influential to teachers who are using it in other countries. Secondly, we also decided to come up with environmental education clubs. So this would be an incentive for students as well, because one would be chosen to head it, and they would be given a feeling of responsibility, which would be also closely monitored by the teachers. So it'll also help build a bond between the environmental education teachers as well as the students. Now, when we come to theory, when we come to converting theory into practice, we believe that this essentially means increasing the amount of outstation trips, but it doesn't have to be nationally. It could be as simple as a garden or the park, so that if we're learning about afforestation, you're actually experiencing it and you know how to go about it. Lastly, we also thought for the teachers, we could come up with something known as the Green Teacher Award, so that they also are recognized and commended for the work that they are doing with their students, for their students. And although the ideas were simplistic, we also believe that it would have a wide-ranging impact. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yamini. Next, we have Rekha from 3. Ajay, go ahead.
Yeah, so all right. So our topic of discussion was how we can integrate environmental education into school systems, in public and private schools both. So what we discussed about essentially was how there is a need to have a localized awareness plans in both public and private schools that focuses on specific local issues that affect communities. because obviously it's important to have like global outreach programs and inculcate environmental education at a global level, but to really build up interest and passion for the environment at the primary, middle, and senior level, it's essential to have localized plans and integrate real life examples that affect communities where schools are situated, to build up that interest from a primary level, from a middle school level, from a senior level. So discussing corresponding issues that are age appropriate and relevant to primary school students, to middle school students, and senior school students is essential. For example, at the primary level, we spoke about how we need activities and initiatives that can take place year-round. To, for example, recycling programs. We have a waste disposal camps and stuff like that. That can really, inculcate the love for the environment into students from a very young age. In our discussion, we also spoke about how global education systems' main objective, of course, is to create quality products for a global job market, on top of teaching and obviously inculcating the important factors. So we believe that implementing the requirement for well-versed knowledge about environmental sustainability at each subject level, so not just having a dedicated environmental education period, inculcating environmental education in every level, in linguistics, in, say, science, everything. So that environment is something that is ingrained in the mindset of every student, not just, reserved for one particular week of the year where they discuss the environment. It's also important to have a platform for students to discuss environmental issues and take forward that. And we also spoke about how students should have a platform for the entire school to come together. So one environmental, say, committee that takes forward student initiatives at a school level, so that students have resources that they can utilize to put forth their environmental initiatives, and it's not just an individualized thing. We also lastly spoke about how it's important to actually physically have, so for example, reinforcing the importance of environmental sustainability by having recycling booths, which a lot of schools already do, and low cost infrastructure. So it's an inclusive process. It's not just something that privileged private schools can achieve. It's something that can be achieved at every level of schooling. That's about it. Also, we spoke about how core subjects should be related to environmental sustainability, so that it's not just something that's left up to, say, a couple of passionate students. It's something that's ingrained in the mindset of every single student studying in both private and public schools. That was essentially what we spoke about.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Artik. I'm genuinely impressed by the quality of proposals we have. You guys are coming up with very innovative stuff. Next up, we have breakout room 4. So, Arhan, over to you.
Thank you, Dhruv. So it was a great discussion. I have some really bright minds on here, and I have way too many points over here. So I'm just gonna take the 4 best ones. So number 1, businesses could fund or organize field trips, academic sessions, and activities for the youth to educate them on a plethora of different subjects. It would be in accordance with public and private schools. Policymakers could continue with things like the ATG tax benefits as India has implemented, and or provide businesses with similar incentives to continue this work. Number 2, the government could fine or sue establishments polluting above the stipulated level allowed by the local governmental organization. This would cause businesses to abide by the local legislature and at the same time prevent blatant exploitation of our ecosystem. Number 3, businesses could implement internships for middle to high school going students within their business and recruit the youth during the summer to help the business to be more eco-friendly, and this would thus cause them to both parties to be beneficiaries of the program, as well as teach the youth about real life scenarios in accordance with environmental education. Number 4, businesses could start a tree plantation drive, for instance, and what this will do is it will increase brand reputation within the community, of course, and at the same time act as a mass advertisement of sorts. Therefore, it will help the business also gain revenue while at the same time benefiting the ecosystem. So I think I've run out of time here, but that's essentially what we talked about, and the rest of the points I can send over to Dhruv later on, and then that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arhan. Okay, Siddhant, the head of breakout room 5, you're up next.
Right. So breakout room 5 had a great discussion, and we were discussing the role of the youth. And what we did was we came up with what the youth can do and how the youth can do it. And some things we realized that are critical to the role of the youth and why the youth is such an important stakeholder is that the youth takes in this knowledge, the youth innovate, and the youth implement. And we discussed this at both the micro and the macro scale. We talked about how it is essential for the youth to learn and then to take back this knowledge to their communities and their homes and their families. And not just that, but but through government regulated programs and through a globalized standard environmental education, because it is a global issue. It is again a global issue, and the youth are perfect to globally talk about this. So through a globally standardized program taught to them in schools, they can take this back home, implement solutions in their communities. But they can also do this at the macro scale, because youth activism is seeing a major rise, and the youth is such an important voice in a critical issue that they will take on. So what another thing the youth can do is hold other governments and countries to account for the issues that for this giant predicament which is there for due to unregulated destruction of the environment. And what we decide the youth can do is that schools should be facilitators for them. They should be breeding grounds for ideas and activisms, which the school can help spread. So if a student comes up with an idea in school, the school can have them spread it, and then they can take it to businesses and other agencies and individuals who will allow them to innovate, who will take this, refine their idea, create prototypes, and fund organizations. So, and youth dialogue would be very important globally, because the youth have the ability to communicate globally. So through conferences like this, or through coming up with eco challenges, which is creating a project in a school and testing its viability around the world by practicing it in other schools, were just some of the points we discussed in our group, and the rest we will send over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Siddhant. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're going to stop right here. But I want all of you to be sure of the fact that everything you said in your group discussion is going to be actualized. So we're going to take it down, prepare a policy report, send that to you and also to the ex-president of Ecuador. So what we're really hoping is that everything you said today in this 1.5 hour long call is going to create a legitimate difference. So I just want to say thank you all so much. We hope you had a wonderful discussion. Over to Anvi.
Thanks, Dhruv. We want to give a special thanks to Her Excellency Miss Rosalia Arteaga for her inspiring words, Miss Lina P. Rojas for being a wonderful MC and host, POP Protect Our Planet movement for their continued help, and Fundación Fidal, TGELF, and Mind Institute for their support. From TYS to each of you that participated and are now a part of the Youth Symposium family, thank you too.
Thank you so much, Anvi. And I do want to point out before we, like Dhruv said, we are getting to the end of our program. We have about 13 or 12 minutes left, and I have seen in our group chat that I do want to point out a quick announcement. I see that Sohani has posted that if you do want to get involved in writing this policy brief for this meeting, it will be sent to Admi Party in India and to Her Excellency Rosalia Arteaga, the former constitutional president of Ecuador. So we are asking that you do email the Youth Symposium team, and that email will be, Anvi, can you please provide us with that email?
The email ID is theyouthsymposium@gmail.com. If you look in the chat box below, Sohani has posted the email ID as well.
So yes, perfect. Do email the team as well. Like I said, look us up on social media, follow us in different ways, and make sure that you do register so you can follow up with what is going to be our next symposium for the conference. And we did, like I said, we didn't get the chance to go through everyone's, but they will be all conceptualized into one area so you can understand that your voice was heard, that it is going to be put out there, that her office of Her Excellency is going to be looking into it, and it is going to be passed along, and it is going to be, reviewed. So having that said, and to be respectful of your time, what I want to go into is pretty much the closure of today's event. And I do trust, that you leave today more than just empowered. You leave with the fact that education is as indispensable, indispensable in the way that needs for people to realize that their capabilities and prioritize the fact that it can serve as a catalyst for development. When you look at this and when you're in a conference in something virtual and in a time that we are right now, the fact that we're so apart and that there's so many of us when we are kicking off an event like this, it means that we're more connected than ever. And truly, I know that when we're not present, when we're not physically present, it makes it a lot harder. But thank you so much to each of you that you were here today, you participated. We have people from all ages. We have people from high school, we have people from middle school. We have I was in a breakout room and I had someone that was very young. We had people from 4th grade. I met people that were in 6th grade. So this is incredible. We have people from all ages. So thank you so much. Thank you. It was such a joy to be here with you guys today to witness these discussions. And they couldn't be possible without you. So remember that no matter the action, right? Big or small, as long as it drives action, you have a platform. And that platform is here with TYS. And you have that platform as well with the POP movement. And you have that platform as well as Her Excellency was speaking. So make sure that you stay with us, that you follow and that you participate in many of our other symposiums that we have coming up, because we want to count with you and your voice will be globally heard. So before I wrap up, I do want to leave you with a quote that I very, very, very much like, and listen to it. It's very interesting. So you ready? It says, "A true conservationist is a man who knows that the world is not given by his fathers, but borrowed from his children." And that is by John James Audubon. So thank you for allowing me to be your Masters of Ceremony and host. And thank you, TYS. Thank you, the POP movement. And thank you, Your Excellency. I very much enjoyed being here with you guys today. And I'm really excited to be next up. So having that said, I do want to close. We have 9 minutes left. I don't know if we have people in here in the main room that you guys may want to talk about anything. We can open the floor for questions since we do have 9 minutes. If we are interested, if you guys want to discuss something, do we have anyone on the main floor that would like to speak about the topics that we did get to discuss? If you do so, please go ahead and raise your hand. We can go ahead and unmute you. We're more than happy to do so. Do we have anyone? I know we had earlier, we had some hands that were raised up that were talking. Let's see, we have a hand that was raised. Anvi, could you collaborate with me to go ahead and...
Yeah, Saruvesh, he was part of our group discussion. He has his hand raised. So should I unmute? I'll unmute him.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you. So just now I was in a break room which discussed more into education, how education can make change in environmental sustainability. But I also had prepared for something regarding the NGO itself and also political issues in NGOs. So when we are creating NGO, like also we have huge global scale NGOs in localized area. We have small NGOs working with their own motive, which helps the global big scale NGOs. That's a good thing. But now the thing is, apart from doing project-based programs, we need our own self-independent or self-sustainable financial status for the NGOs. So I believe this involves political support and also global or major groups like UNs, UNICEF, they have to help to fund them. And this process also includes the approach, not from the NGO to the bigger scale of it, but from the bigger scale to the NGO approach. So it can be efficiency, we can increase the efficiency indirectly when we have enough funding in localized area. And plus another thing, there are multiple small program-based NGOs going on from Malaysia. So we have a lot of program-based NGOs are doing really good job. But the problem is there's some duplication of service. People are focusing on a particular area only. We can't blame, because some particular areas in Malaysia it's easy to get permission from the authority compared to rural areas where it involves logistics, involves sort of big funding. So I believe that there should be a bot, there should be a bot to observe all the small NGOs and the projects, which doesn't involve any duplication of service, which we can save some budget and also can give a very efficient service and also not focused or exclusive in one place only, but overall globally. So that's my idea.
Okay, well, thank you.
Politically,
Thank you so
and
much for
major groups
sharing.
like UNICEF could help it.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I do appreciate it. I know we have 5 minutes left to wrap this up. I know I saw another hand.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, and I do want to let you know, just you have about 2 minutes because I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So go ahead and I'll keep a time on it.
Okay, thank you. Just like one person said in the 90-second speech, that there are no borders anymore. We have to collaborate together. We have to shape the world together and solve the environmental issues. But what the main problem is that there are many countries who are suffering through poverty. They are going through war, and which has a detrimental environmental impact. But what happens is they do not have the funding, they do not have the money to actually go ahead with the environmental initiatives or the policy making which they want to do, because it may harm the economy or which may harm the people. And this may not be popular for the government because like we know, a lot of countries are democracies now, and the general public may not be interested to vote for the government if the general public if they're not helping the general public first and helping the environment before that. So what we need to do is and UN and other organizations like that, we have to donate and we have to share the funds with the poorer countries where there are detrimental environmental impacts, so that they also have a chance to improve the environmental conditions there, to reduce the impact of war, or the environmental impact of war, or other things like that, so that they get an opportunity to thrive and they do not get pressurized by other countries to spend their very less amount of tax money or resources on environmental on solving environmental issues, and rather use that money to shape the economy so that in future it benefits them as well. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I very much agree with that, and thank you for sharing that as well. And like I said, to all the participants that are here, I encourage you to please email us, email the team, follow everything on Instagram, participate, tell us your thoughts, because this is just the beginning. This is the kickoff. Today is the first event that the Youth Symposium is having. And thank you for being here with us. It's very, 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 very special. And this is how it begins. This is how the movement begins. This is how the pop movement family is here with us as well. And it's crucial. So hearing your voices and putting all this together, it's one of a kind, really. So again, thank you, everyone. We are finishing up with 7 minutes. And like I said, just keep in your mind how incredible it was that today, on Earth Day, the 50th anniversary, it's so beautiful, of course, among a time that, you know, we are all dealing, like Her Excellency mentioned, being at home. We got to be together from different countries. So thank you, guys. Thank you to my incredible TYS co-founders and to the facilitators that were with us today. You know, incredible. And you guys have an awesome morning, evening, night. We're all over the world. So you guys, with this, we conclude our conference, and you guys take care. All right? Bye.